Okay, we have two non-negative numbers. So let x equals the first number, y equals the second number. And converting every statement here into its mathematical form, we have sum. So the sum of the squares of two non-negative numbers. So when we say sum, so that means it's plus, it's addition. So sum of the squares of two non-negative numbers. So squares of non-negative number. So squares of square of x and square of y. So the sum of the squares of the two non-negative numbers is to be 4. So this first statement is x squared plus y squared equals 4. So how should they be chosen so that the product of their cubes is a maximum? So how should they be chosen so that the product of their cubes is a maximum? So our main equation now, since it's stated here that the maximum is the product should be a maximum. So we have x, y, or their product is a maximum. So that means to say P equals xy is our main equation, and we must find a way to express xy, this equation, into one variable. So we make use of this given right here. So let's have y squared. So let's try to solve for y. So y is equal to 4 minus x squared. When we transpose x squared to the right side of the equation, and then we take the square root, both sides of the equation, so that we'd be left with y on the left side. So now y is equal to square root of 4 minus x squared. So let's substitute that. Let's substitute that right here. So we'd have x is equal to square root of 4 minus x squared. Okay? So this is now our main equation in one variable. So we can now differentiate because this is in terms of one variable already. So p is equal to, p prime is equal to, we have left derivative of right. So we apply the product rule. But instead of applying the product rule, we could put this inside the radical, x. So to put that inside the radical, x is just equal to square root of x squared, right? The square root and the square root just cancel out to get x. So what we're going to do is we replace x with x squared so that we could put this inside the radical, so that we won't be applying the product rule anymore. So we'd have this, and remember that square root of a multiplied by square root of b is just square root of a times b. Okay, so meaning we'd have square root of x squared times 4 minus x squared. And simplifying further, we'd have square root of 4x squared minus x to the 4th. Okay, so that is now our equation. And differentiating that one, this is just equal to 4x squared minus x to the 4th, right? To the 1/2. So differentiating that, we'd have 1/2. Copy 4x squared minus x to the 4th. And 1/2 minus 1, that's just negative 1/2. And then derivative, by chain rule, derivative of the function inside. So 4x squared, that's just derivative of 4x squared, that's just 8x. Minus derivative of x to the 4th, that's just 4x cubed. So we'd be left, we'd have this. And from there, simplifying, we would get 8x minus 4x cubed all over 2 square root of 4x squared minus x to the 4th. This is now our derivative of our given equation. But then we equate this to 0 so that we could find a value of x. So equating that to 0, okay, so we have this right here. So when we cross multiply, we just get the denominator will become 0. So we'd have 8x minus 4x cubed equal to 0. And solving for that, we could factor out x, 8 minus 4x squared equals 0. And equating each factor to 0, we'd have 8 minus 4x squared equals 0. So we would have 8 equals 4x squared. Or that's just dividing by 4 both sides. That's 8 divided by 4, that's 2. And x squared is equal to 2. And taking the square root both sides of the equation, you would get x is equal to square root of 2. So you now have the value of x. We can't use x as equal to 0 because when we multiply that to our second number, we would get a product of 0. So we wouldn't get a value for the product. We can't really say that it's a maximum then. So we always choose this value right here, positive numbers, because it's stated that it's non-negative. So we have here x equals square root of 2. When x is equal to square root of 2, we substitute that to our given statement right here. So this statement right here. So we would have y is equal to square root of 4 minus square root of 2 squared. And square root of 2 squared, the square root will cancel out. So you'd be left with 2. 4 minus 2 is 2. Y is equal to square root of 2. So these are now our values for x and y.